So everybody welcome. Again, if you do not have your call sign next to your name, if you would go into the little three dots in the right-hand corner of your picture, click on it, change name, and add your call sign. Pat will appreciate it. Makes it easier to keep track of everybody. And if you don't have a call sign, just your name and no call or something like that. So everybody is welcome. Couple of quick announcements. Saturday is a testing session. And Aaron, correct me, that starts at 10 a.m. at 350 Terry Street. He's still on mute. Or
gotta find the mute.
there you go.
Yeah, 350 Terry at 10.
Okay.
And so far I've got 22 people that have shown interest in coming to the session.
Outstanding. As a general reminder, because of COVID and restrictions, the facility asks that you do wear a mask. I believe, Aaron, I think you said you had some spare masks that you purchased just in case somebody doesn't have one. And we have hand sanitizer and things like that to clean up and stuff like that. So should be good to go.
Yeah, I still have the stuff that you gave me a couple months ago.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
I just want to tell Aaron, I can't make it this week, but if you need any extra VEs for any of these sessions, just let me know. I can help out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've got you on my list, Chuck.
I've helped you once or twice, but it's been before COVID and everything. So
okay.
If you don't have me on there, put me on there.
Well, I send out the notice somewhere around the beginning of the month when we're having the session. So about 4 weeks up. So if you didn't get one right at the end of September, you're not on the list for some reason, and I'll have to chase you down and get you back on there.
All right, thank you. And if you have questions on where it's at, again, send an email to us and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. But 350 Terry Street's been a kind of a blessing to us, and we appreciate the folks over there. I don't know if I sent an email out or not. It probably made it to the splatter. I haven't had a chance to look at the splatter yet. We did get enough votes after the last board meeting that the nominees were voted in as your board members. So nothing changed with the exception of a new vice chair, which is Mike W0KKI. So congratulations, Mike. Don is still our treasurer. Pat's still our secretary, and I'm still the chair. So if you do have any questions, concerns about the club, suggestions, you're always welcome to send an email to board@w0eno.org. And we do listen, and we do, again, like I've always said, this is your club. And we can't please everybody all the time, but we try our hardest to make it at least partially everybody is satisfied as much as we can. Also, if anybody is in any of the fire areas, or if you know of anybody, please let them know. If they have access to a radio, get on repeaters if they need help or anything. I'm sure if people are around or even contact us, we can see if they need help moving or if they get evacuated, let us know, and lend a helping hand, because we all know hams like to help out. So I know we've had a couple people who have been evacuated. Somebody mentioned also, I forget her name, up in Jamestown. I think she was okay as well. She used to be on the nets on occasions. One of our new hams that went through the class with Kat and Brian. So
her name's Laura.
Laura, thank you, Dave. That Laura was okay as well. So that's a couple of them that I know of. But I want to, keep them in your prayers, because this is a horrible situation on top of everything else that's going on in this crazy world. So hopefully they'll get them contained, and hopefully the winds will die down, and we'll get some moisture this weekend if they're promising, but we'll see. Other than that, does anybody have anything else they would like to bring up really quick, and then we'll get the presentation started?
Hey, Chuck, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
Quick. I talked to Dana Kroll. He's up in Lyons, a tech. He's trying to get his general, but I chatted with him Sunday, and he was in partial evacuation. So, I haven't heard back from him since Sunday, so I was going to give him a chat.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
No smoke in Cheyenne at the moment.
Oh, we can make the winds come out of the south there, Pat, if you want to blow all that stuff up there.
Hey, you know, on Sunday morning and Monday morning, it's going to get down to 3 degrees here.
Yeah, it's going to get cold here too. They're saying snow on Sunday. So, and Kat just wrote in the chat in case you didn't see it that the latest splatter, the October splatter, is now on the LARC website. So go check out the latest splatter, take the poll, read the articles. And as always, if you have something you'd like to be put in the splatter, an article, a suggestion, whatever, get a hold of Kat. She's always looking for ideas, suggestions, and things like that to keep our splatter up to the, what are we up to now, Kat? Something like 20 something pages from the original 2 or 3 pages we used to have.
It was 29 this time.
Okay, 29. Also, if you know somebody that would like to that's involved with ham radio or not, and would like to sponsor the splatter as well, be more than happy to put an ad in there for them as well.
Definitely.
You know, we're looking for people to help donate to the club or keep our repeaters up and things like that. So, does anybody else have anything else I'd like to bring up?
I think one thing
Yes, sir.
that
Doug.
I've been monitoring the 2-meter repeaters in the area
Mhm.
and listening for reports on the Colorado fires that we have. And apparently bee cares. I hear somebody else.
Yeah, we've got some background. Yeah, Bee Cares has been on the air. We mentioned that earlier.
Oh, you mentioned that a moment ago?
Yeah. The Bee Cares has been activated and getting on the air as well.
Well, they're on the air, I think, from like 8 in the morning to 8
Yeah.
at night or something like that. It depends on the need. KD0YYY Bill is evacuated and is in Boulder
Okay,
with some family.
that's
And
good.
I don't know some others. I've heard guys communicating who live up there still, and they talk about it. So 146.910 is the repeater that Bee Cares is on. It's I think a controlled net, and the only people using it is a net control operator.
Okay,
Jerry had that duty a couple of days ago for about 5 hours. And KD0YYY, he was net control this morning, I think it was. And so they're providing that service to anybody up in the mountain who wants to talk to somebody who can help them with information. Then there's also a Cal, there's a website that shows where all of the evacuation warnings are and the evacuation orders.
Oh, okay.
Which I forget what it is. I got it bookmarked on my.
Well, if you find it, Doug, you want to put it in the chat, please do, and then people can check it out. And I would say, if you know, unless there's something going on and you're involved in the fire, if you do happen to get, and I would say listen to that net. Let's make sure that emergency personnel and things like that and people who needs to get on can get on and, you know, get the help that they need on these fires. But it'd be a good way to listen and see how Aries nets are run and things like that. So I would, you know, I'd recommend listening to it, and it may be a good learning experience, especially for newer hams.
The Boulder OEM.com is, I think, the main official Calwood fire update page.
Okay.
And of course, the update I'm looking at is October 17th. That's a couple days ago.
Yeah, so I'm sure they'll get it updated here eventually. The
Well,
government agency, it takes them a while.
Oh, government, don't you love them?
Yep. All right, does anybody have anything else?
That's it.
Anybody? If not, we can also bring it up after the meeting. With that said, I have already muted everybody. So Bob, K0NR, is going to be our presenter this evening. So Bob, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here virtually, I guess. Turns out I'm sitting in my RV down here just west of St. Louis. We're headed back to Colorado right now from a trip to the Midwest to visit family. But so far the internet's hanging together. I'm a little worried about it, but it seems to be working. Zoom usually does a good job of recovering if it drops. But how's the audio sound right now?
Right now it's clear. There's a couple of times I've heard you kind of be a little pixelated, but
Okay.
it was very readable.
Okay. If it gets to be a problem, holler at me and we'll see if we can do something.
All right, we'll let you know.
Let's see. So, oh yeah, and hi to Kat. I see her there, and she sends me the splatter every month, and I read through that, and occasionally contributed a few things to that. So try and keep tabs on what your club is doing. Let's see here. I need to share some PowerPoint stuff. Oh, a couple of questions. I'm not going to be looking at the chat, but if you see something interesting in the chat, you feel free to holler at me and bring it to my attention.
I definitely will.
So is anybody involved in Summits on the Air, either chasing or activating?
No, in our club it's not very well done. Northern Colorado has quite a few people that do it.
Yeah,
we
I know
got a few.
How about VHF contesting? Anybody participate in VHF contests?
Nope.
Okay.
That's why we invited you,
Well,
so
that's
you can
good.
tell us all
Just try and
about it.
get it. All right. So yeah, here's a picture of me on Mount Sneffels a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And that also ended up on the cover of my book, VHF Summits and More. I lived down in Monument. I was first licensed in 1977. I was wandering across the campus at Purdue University, and I got to get my boiler. There we go. Go Boilers. And saw a little sign that said, come to our class to get your ham radio license. And of course, that was a novice class back then, right? And that's how I got started. I am an electrical engineer. I'm pretty much sort of retired, but I've been doing some consulting and some writing for some of the web-based publications like EDN, if you're in the electronics industry. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is my most consistent ham radio interest. It's how VHF, ham radio, mountains, and exploring. When I say exploring, it's hiking, driving around in our Jeep, whatever, to camping, spending time in the RV, getting outdoors, and combining that with the VHF stuff and mountains. And I do like to write stuff. I've got my blog at k0nr.com, and then the book that you see the cover of there, and a few other things I've done over time. So let's see, that's kind of the background. And we'll just dive in here. So really, I want to talk a little bit about VHF basics. I'll try not to overdo that, and then talk about VHF contests and summits on the air. You'll see how it kind of all fits together. So when we talk about VHF, and frankly, a lot of us, myself included, will throw those terms around pretty loosely, right? VHF for me often just means anything above 50 megahertz, but being a little more precise, we got the HF range, and then the VHF range is 30 to And then UHF is 300 to 3000 megahertz or 3 gigahertz. And of course, the most popular bands are 6 meters or 50 megahertz, 2 meters, 144 megahertz, and 70 centimeters, 420 or 440 megahertz, something like that. And so those are the ones I'll refer to the most here. And they certainly are the most popular. Most people seem to have some kind of 2 meter rig. There are of course guys that say, no, I'm all about HF. Don't care about anything above HF. But it seems like most people have, picked up a Beofang, whatever. Speaking of which, that is often a place where people start. They get their ham shack in a hand, buy an HT, handheld transceiver or handy talkie. It's affordable, compact transceiver with antenna, battery pretty much ready to go. Probably needs some programming of memory channels to make it useful, but it's pretty much everything you need. Typically, that's going to cover 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Runs maybe 5 watts, and saw some of the chats there. The 3 best ways to improve your HT is antenna, because that rubber, it's nice they give you that rubber duck antenna. It's very convenient, and it kind of works, but actually it's kind of I always call it a very convenient crummy antenna. And so we'll talk about some of the improvements we can make on that. Typically, if you're going to put together a base station on VHF, usually the first step looks something like this. You get your DC power supply, you plug it into the wall. It puts out nominally 12 volts, and actually most people buy a mobile transceiver and just kind of set it up for base usage. I'd say most often that's just an FM only radio, right? They're the most affordable, and it's where most of the activity is on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And then some kind of antenna. It's hook up your coax to the antenna, and for FM usage, the antenna is going to be vertically polarized. So that's a picture, I think, of a Diamond X50. Pretty nice, handy antenna. And we'll take a little bit closer look at antennas in a minute. And then the more serious guys, the more serious operation on let's kind of focus on 2 meters, are going to use single sideband. It's a lot more efficient than FM, particularly for weak signals. When you use FM and the signal strength starts to fade, like if you're driving down the road, or maybe conditions are just changing where the signal gets weaker, FM has this phenomena called the threshold effect, where the signal's really strong, and then as the signal fades, it's like, oh, he's getting noisy, and then next thing you know, boom, he's gone. It fades pretty fast, and that's its weak signal performance. That's not that great. It really disappears. Whereas single sideband is a more gradual fading mechanism, and so you can copy down into the noise a lot. It's pretty dramatic if you do like side by side comparisons. So single sideband is a very common, very popular mode, and we do CW on 2 meters and the other VHF, UHF bands as well. Calling frequency is 144.2 because sideband's all going to be simplex, right? There's virtually no repeaters get used with that mode, and normally that's horizontal antennas. The single sideband, the weak signal guys tend to use horizontal antennas, typically a Yagi with quite a few elements. And then the problem with single sideband is you go run out and you buy some new radio that can do 2 meter sideband, and you go to the calling frequency and you sit there and you listen and you just hear for hours on end. Sometimes it happens on FM, right, where there's just no activity, but
sideband even more so. The challenge is, how do I find activity? And so I always tell people, well, two main ways to do that. One are nets. There's weekly net on 2 meter sideband in Colorado that I won't say it covers the whole state, but covers the Front Range pretty well. So you can check into that net. And then the other thing is contests. And you know, on HF, the contests can be sort of jam-packed, fill the band with a bazillion signals, and you know, some people actually are pretty negative on contesting, right? Because of that, they really can dominate a band. Well, on VHF, it's more like activity weekend. It's not it's not a ton of stations, but it sort of brings all the folks out of the woodwork that want to get on and make VHF contacts. So it's really nice from that standpoint. Good chance to make some contacts. Terms of equipment, still staying on the theme of single sideband and CW, which, you know, the terminology there as well, you need an all mode transceiver, not just an FM transceiver that does one thing. You need all mode. And when they say all mode, they mean it. It'll pretty much do any of the modes, any of the modulation types. There's really only one VHF UHF transceiver out there right now. It's the ICOM IC9700. Pretty nice radio. It's the same size as the IC7300, which is the very popular HF transceiver, right? Seems like everybody's buying one. And then the 9700 has 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and they include 23 centimeters. So that's actually 1.2 gigahertz. Not super popular, but it's nice to have. And you can see kind of how ICOM's setting up their radios these days. A lot of their HF radios include 6 meters, right? So they give you the 6 meter band with the with your HF rig, and then two 70 centimeter, 23 centimeters sort of fills in the top. If you want to go with you know, all mode on the VHF UHF bands. Nice radio. It's based on software defined radio like the 7300 is, and it's got all the cool features, real-time spectrum display and all that. About $1,500 last time I looked, so it's not cheap. It's a good piece of change there. That's what, how many Beofangs would $1,500 buy? Yeah, it's a lot of money. And then the other way to get on 2 sideband or VHF sideband is the do everything radios, and or HF through UHF radios that do pretty much all modes. Looks like the graphics a little stretched on this. I think it doesn't look quite right. The FT991 is a really good example of that, and I've got one of these radios, and it's just great because it covers all those bands. And there's some others out there like the IC7100 and the FT857. Probably some others I didn't mention here. And then there's a bunch of QRP radios that will do 2 meters, and some of them do 70 centimeters. The old standby is the Yaesu. Well, it was the FT817, and they've updated it slightly to the 818. A lot of like soda operators have those if they want to do 2 meter and sideband. It does all modes, of course. And then the Elecraft KX3, with or without the 2 meter option, that radio is really popular with the QRP guys and the Summits on the Air folks. And then if you want to use it for 2 meters, it does have a 2 meter option. There's no 70 centimeter option. It does have 6 meters built in. And then the IC705 has got everybody talking now. It's just started shipping you know, was announced a long time ago, and they finally got it done, and it looks pretty sweet. HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. I think it's about $1,300, so not super cheap. Okay, on 6 meters, you can kind of treat 6 meters like an HF band. Putting up something like a wire dipole, as you see in the upper right here, half wavelength, feed it in the center. It's complaining about my internet connection. How am I doing? Am I still with you guys?
Mostly okay.
Yeah, you dropped for a little bit.
Okay. All right. Keep our fingers crossed. Okay, 6 meters, wire dipole, end fed, half wave is another way to go. And then you can, of course, have like Yagi antennas, and like a 3-element Yagi is kind of a nice sized antenna. I've got one that has what is it? It's 7 elements on 6, a little bit bigger. And then on that's a Yagi antenna down below, right? That's where you've got the different elements all lined up. And then on the higher bands, like 2 meters up, you typically going to be for single sideband use, typically going to want a beam antenna. Typically going to be a Yagi, and again, horizontally polarized for weak signal work. Yeah, kind of already hit this pretty good. Vertical polarization for FM, DMR, kind of the mobile modes, handheld and mobile radios, and then horizontal for weak signal base station kind of use. Here's some example of vertical antennas. Mentioned the Diamond X50. I see a lot of guys buying those, about not quite 6 feet tall. Pretty well made. Arrow up in Cheyenne has this simple ground plane antenna that set up for both 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And they've got a J-pole antenna. And so I know some people like to homebrew these. Pretty simple construction and can be pretty sturdy. And then let's see, I think Chuck mentioned earlier, you could build a little ground plane antenna with just an SO239 connector and 5 pieces of wire soldered onto it. That's actually a nice project if you're just getting started and want to try something. Some horizontal antennas. You can get omnidirectional horizontal antennas. So like the ones I'm showing here are M squared antennas. I've got a number of their products, and they're very made. So they have this little 2 meter loop omnidirectional you can put up. You can run it mobile, and you could put it up on a mast if you want. Most people are going to try and get some gain, like at least like a 4 element or maybe a 9 element. I think that's the one I have, is 9 element with 14 dBi of gain. But now you're into, okay, you probably have to have a rotor to turn it, or some mechanism for turning it, and you probably want to mount it pretty high. So you're starting to get into a more complicated, more serious antenna installation. One thing I wanted to talk about is one of the chapters out of the book. I call it the myth of VHF line of sight. What I started to notice is some of my soda buddies would say, well, you know, I'm going to go out and I'll take VHF along on the soda activation, and well, you know, I can only talk like 50 miles away because that's line of sight. Or they would just assume that the you know, we're going to get line of sight and we're going to get nothing else if there's things in the way. And I'm going, well, no, it's not quite that simple. That's kind of what we teach in our technician class. We kind of say, well, HF is your long distance, you know, skywave propagation. VHF is mostly line of sight. So just kind of think of it that way. And that's okay to get started. But what it really looks a little bit more like this. You kind of have the VHF likes to go to line of sight. So let's call that the line of sight region. And in the ARL talks about having, you know, the optical horizon is how far you can actually see optically, and then the radio horizon goes a little further, like maybe 15% or something like that. But and so it kind of implies that the signal's just going to stop. Well, that's not what happens. The signal keeps going. Now I've dotted the arrows a bit because the signal is a lot weaker out here in the non-line of sight region, but it's still may be workable. And so that's where the weak signal guys start improving the transmitted signal and trying to push the limits of what's possible out in that non-line of sight region over the horizon. We have a similar kind of effect with the mountains. You know, you kind of signal propagates to until it gets obstructed by a mountain, then it tends to stop. Well, it doesn't really stop. It can there can be diffraction over the top of that. There can be reflections. There's a number of ways that the signal keeps on going. It's just not going to be as strong. And so, you know, when we're out doing SOTA stuff, it's one of the tricks to always remember is if you have a directional antenna, just point it in every direction, because you never know where the best path is going to be. I've had cases where I knew the guy I was trying to work was like to the south of me, but the best path to him was to the west because I was getting some kind of reflection or some kind of bounce off of another mountain. But that's kind of what makes it fun. Here's an example. You know, in August we do this Colorado 14er event, and it's not just the 14ers in Colorado, but it's any of the summits on the air peaks. And so I've kind of kept track of what the best distances have been. Pikes Peak is usually on the air, and the optical horizon from Pikes Peak is about 120 miles. So if you add that 15% for 130, gets you to 138 miles. But I know out in Kansas, the highest spot in Kansas is called Mount Sunflower. Stop in and visit it sometime. It's not much of a mountain. It's not really a mountain at all. It's just a high spot in the plains out there. And it's about 160 miles from Pikes Peak. And I've worked them from Pikes with just no problem whatsoever. And so I did look up what was the best, and this is on 2-meter FM. It's not even on sideband. Best 2-meter FM was between Phil, N0KE. He was on Mount Bros, and he worked Larry over in Smith Center, Kansas at 375 miles. Now, Larry has quite the antenna array, so that certainly helped. But it gives you an idea of, you know, you can work beyond the radio horizon quite a bit. So we do get skywave propagation on VHF, and the most common is sporadic E, because it's off the E layer in the ionosphere, and it's kind of sporadic, so they call it sporadic E. Most common during the summer months, occurs pretty often on 6 meters. If you're on 6 meters a lot during the summer, you'll probably experience, I don't know, 10 sporadic E openings, maybe more. And then a lot less frequently on 2 meters, but it does occur. And then we can also even get F-layer propagation, which is the typical propagation or very common propagation mode for HF, but it'll also occur on 6 meters with intense sunspot activity. We haven't quite seen that yet. We haven't seen that in a while. Let's put it that way. But you can work quite some distance if the sun's on 6, if the sunspots are really, really strong. Yeah, 6 meters, we call that the magic band. It's kind of this bipolar band where normally it kind of acts like 2 meters, where you tend to have this more line of sight thing and more local communication. But then when eSkip kicks in, you can work people across North America, and typical eSkip. In fact, you can get multiple hops on eSkip, and then typical hop I think is about 1,000 miles, but you can get double hops that go 2,000 or 3,000 miles. And then another thing worth mentioning here is FT8 is getting very popular on 6 meters. People are often trying to work DX when the signals are pretty weak, and man, FT8 really gives you an edge, just like on the HF bands. I was going to ask that earlier. Did any of you guys working FT8 on HF?
Yep, I am.
We have,
Yeah,
we have a
Joe?
few in the club that definitely does.
Yeah, and so you kind of what I'm hearing from people is, they maybe they prefer working phone or something, but man, they hear the DX on FT8 and they're out chasing the DX and they can make the contact, and they're seeing some real advantage there. I worked into Japan on 6 meters using FT8, and I'm pretty sure I would have never worked them on single sideband. I think that's pretty clear. But I worked a bunch of guys into Japan. It was a lot of fun. So let's see. Okay, so let's shift to VHF contests. Like I said, I consider these more like activity weekends. And so typical VHF contest uses all the bands above 50 megahertz. Scoring is based on the Maidenhead grid system. We'll talk a little bit about that. Most of the activity is on single sideband. And so really not so much FM, but there's also some CW, FM, and FT8, and I almost have to change the slide because the FT8 is becoming really popular on 6 meters during the contest, to the point of there's sort of this debate of, is it better to be using FT8 or single sideband for contesting? Because you can, if the band's open, single sideband's going to work, and you can work a lot more stations quickly. If they invented FT4, which runs about twice as fast as FT8, and it's specifically intended for contesting. So that's starting to be used in the VHF contests as well. It is pretty much a carbon copy to FT8, except the time slots are half as long. So the exchange, making a contact goes faster, but the signal and noise ratio improvement isn't as good as FT8. So you're giving up something to go a little faster. Okay, yeah, all bands above 50 megahertz. There again, 6 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters are the most popular. The idea is you work everybody you can on every band. So you can, and mode does not matter. Once you work them on, say 2 meters, if you work them on single sideband, you don't get to work them again on FT8 or FM or anything. It's just once per band. And then roughly speaking, the score is you add up your QSO points, how many QSOs you made times the total number of grids that you work. And the grid system, of course, is worldwide. Here's the major grids. Here in Colorado, we've got we're in the DN block and the DM block. And I'll give you a better picture of that. Here's Colorado. And a grid is 1 degree of latitude by 2 degrees of longitude. And they're not, we always say grid squares, and they're not actually squares. They're maybe rectangles. Let's see, up in Longmont, you'd be in Delta November 70, Denver and Point South, or Delta Mike 79, Colorado Springs and Pueblo, or Delta Mike 78, and so forth. Turns out that grid line runs right through Boulder, right? That's actually the 40-degree north line. What's the name of that street? Is it Meridian Street? No, that's not right.
Baseline.
Oh, Baseline. Thank you.
Yeah.
Baseline runs right down to there. Anyway, always good to know your grid, whether it's for contests or just normal operation, or the satellite guys use them a lot. Good thing to know. There's 4 major contests. There's 3 that the ARL offers: January, June, and September. And CQ has one in July. The difference there is it's 6 meters and 2 meters only, whereas the ARL contests are all bands above 50 megahertz. June's the most popular. It's the warm weather helps people that want to go operate portable, and then the sporadic E is usually pretty good in June. Here's my buddy Stu sitting on Mount Herman. This was actually in January. You see a little bit of snow. Mount Herman's like 9,000 feet in elevation just west of Monument on the first mountain range. So yeah, that was in January. A bunch of us hiked up there and set up some portable VHF stations for an afternoon. Here's me on Mount Evans during the CQ Worldwide contest, just 2 meters and 6 meters. I've got Yagis for both of them, and just operating from the SUV with that mast is connected to the trailer hitch. I had a little mount rigged up where I could hold it that way. Worked pretty well. One thing that's kind of fun with the VHF contests is the concept of a rover station. And let's go back to Colorado. You look at these grids. Well, you'd like to be able to work somebody out here in DM89 or DN80, and let's face it, there's mostly cows out there. There might be a few hams, but they may not be on the air for the contest. So these grids are typically empty. But this rover station really helps. Rover stations can move from grid to grid. They get to make multiple contacts with the same station. So every time they move to a new grid, they're allowed to work everybody again. So here's one of our more serious rovers, Eric, KR0VER. That's a vanity call for a guy that wants to be a rover. Here's his SUV with a boatload of Yagi stacked up there. I think that's 2 meters on top, and then I think that square antenna is probably a halo for 6 meters, and then that's probably 1.25 meters and 70 centimeters, and he's got some loop Yagis there too for the higher bands. Anyway, here's his route one year that he published, and he's kind of going out through the eastern grids of Colorado to activate those and trying to map out a route that is most efficient. So he uses his time really well. Okay, so that's about VHF contests. Again, I like them for just the fact they generate activity, they concentrate activity, yeah, I get into the scoring thing now, right? I kind of start getting competitive either with myself or with some of my fellow VHF enthusiasts, but really it's all about getting on and making contacts. Want to say a few things about Summits on the Air. Summits on the Air is two ways to participate. You can be an activator. In other words, you get on top of a mountain and activate, or you can be a chaser. So which means you try and contact the folks on top of mountains. It's a worldwide program that started in the UK. It was very cleverly organized to where it started in the UK and spread through Europe, and then pretty much each country is its own association. Although I guess in the US it really breaks more by state, and so each state gets set up under this worldwide program as part of Summits on the Air, and then you have different points available per summit, and it's always based on elevation, but the elevations around the world change quite a bit, so you kind of localize it for your specific area. And there's a award system where you can earn point. Each activation or effort chasing activators turns into points, and then you can get certificates and various awards. It's all really pretty cool. In Colorado, there's over 1,800 SOTA summits. So that's quite a few. And there is a list. You don't just go activate any mountain that you find, right? Somebody went through and cataloged all the summits according to certain criteria. And so, yeah, the summit must be on the list. The equipment, the idea is it's a non-motorized ascent. So the idea is you carry the equipment, no real minimum distance, but not attached to a vehicle. So a good example there is Pikes Peak. There's a road to the top. It's okay to drive to the top of Pikes Peak, but then you get out of your car and you grab your backpack and walk some distance away from your vehicle so that your station can be carried in a non-motorized way. And portable power, but no fossil fuel generators. So it pretty much means battery. Some people use solar cells, but there's probably a battery in the system as well. So pretty cool program, and as you might imagine, pretty active here in Colorado. In fact, I think it's growing quite nicely in our state for obvious reasons. So here's where this is a map of all the SOTA summits in the U.S. And as you'd probably expect, you sort of have your East Coast clump there with the mountain ranges that run up and down. You've got maybe a surprising number of summits in Arkansas, some in Missouri, some in Upper Michigan and Wisconsin. And then you got the Rocky Mountains, pretty good set of summits, New Mexico, and then the West Coast. Of course, you have the Sierras and the mountain ranges that go up and down the West Coast. But the only guys that are really kind of left out, there's none in Kansas. It's just too flat. There's none in Florida. But if you really wanted to get involved in SOTA, you're probably, half a day's drive from some kind of summit in the U.S. And here in Colorado, of course, we have a lot. So I did a zoom in on kind of the Boulder, Longmont area. It shows you some of the nearby summits off to the west. Where is it? Up here is Long's Peak. I used to live in Loveland years ago, and it seemed like everybody was always looking off to the west to Long's Peak, right? It's the 13er that's out in northern Colorado. But there's lots of other summits that are closer in, like around Boulder. There's Green Mountain. That one is pretty popular. I think it's that little dot there. I think says it's been activated 67 times. So lots of people operate from the top of Green Mountain. I think it's a pretty easy climb too. Some of these are. Long's Peak is not. I would not consider that an easy climb. I consider that a very hard climb. but some of these others are a lot lower in elevation. So how do you do a SOTA activation? Oh, I need to put out a disclaimer. So most of the Summits on the Air activity is done on HF. It's kind of your typical QRP operator with his little radio and string up some kind of wire, either up in the trees or string it up by a like a fishing pole, collapsible fishing pole, something like that. And so most of it's on HF, and of course that has a lot of benefits of range. You know, get on 20 meters and you work people across North America, that sort of thing. A lot of it's on CW. You know, operating with low power, CW gets the job done a little bit, quite a bit better. So just make you aware of that. But I don't do that. I do, my thing is VHF and mountain. So I focus on VHF because to me, if you know, I can have a VHF radio on my back deck and maybe talk to somebody 5 miles. I take that same radio to the top of Pikes Peak, and now I can talk over 100 miles. That's a huge difference that I always found very, very interesting. So then on VHF, 2 meter FM is going to be the most popular mode for SOTA. And you go, well, wait a minute, you just told me that single sideband is more efficient. Why don't all the SOTA guys use 2 meter sideband? Well, the problem is all the other operators out there have 2 meter FM. It's just so popular. It still dominates. So that's where most of the SOTA activity is going to be. So easy VHF SOTA, I just call that the take along a 2 meter handheld on a hike. So here's me a few years ago on Kaufman Ridge, nice little easy hike up there. Took the HT along, stuck it in a tree. It does have a little bit better antenna on there. We'll talk about that. And it's about that simple to go make radio contacts with Summits on the Air. Here's a look at the antenna I was using. This is a halfway vertical. So, you know, telescopes out to be a half wave on 2 meters. It's got the SMA connector. And this is connected to an FT, the Yaesu FT60. And here it is all collapsed, right? And a half wave works way better than any of the smaller antennas, like certainly a rubber duck. Even the quarter wave antennas, in my experience, are not that great. A half wave is far superior. The problem is a half wave is big and clumsy, right? In fact, some people, you really want to be careful and not like break off your antenna connector with this big antenna sticking out. And I have broken a few antennas. It's pretty, if you're not careful with them, it's pretty easy to kink the telescoping elements and end up ruining it. But I've never, just want to take it easy on the antenna connectors. A big lever arm is working on that radio. Recently I came across a dual band version, which is quite nice. You can find them on Amazon by searching for two-way RDIO. Well, search for RH770. They've got them in SMA connectors, both flavors, and they also have them in B and C, and they're $17 delivered. And they work pretty well on 2 meter and 70 centimeters. So I've been using that a lot. And another people like to use is the roll-up J-pole antenna, and it's made out of twin lead or ladder line. You can build them yourself. There's lots of information out on the web if you start searching around for 2 meter J-pole, but you can buy them assembled as well. The classic one is just single band for 2 meters, but people have figured out how to make them work on 2 bands as well. That's pretty good. It's basically a half-wave radiator plus a quarter wave matching section, and so it's going to work about as well as that half-wave antenna I just referred to. But this you'll probably either hang it in a tree or hang it on a fishing pole or something. And some people use these at home. They hang them in their windows. Some people have built like PVC pipe, stick this inside a PCV pipe so it has a little more protection, and then kind of make their own antenna that way. It's kind of a handy thing to have. You talk about ARES, this is a handy thing to have in your Go kit, right? Let's see, what else? Well, the next step up is still talking 2 meter FM here. Bring along a small 2 meter Yagi, and the one I've really lashed onto are the Arrow antennas out of Cheyenne. I think they're well made. They collapse down really nice. This one is the 3-element 2 meter single band antenna. On some of the pictures you may have noticed I had the dual band version of this, which does, it has elements for 2 meters, and then in 90 degrees it has elements for 70 centimeters. I use that sometimes. I actually don't carry it as much lately because it just seems like most of the contacts are on 2 meters anyway. So I just take the 2 meter. And of course I got a vertically polarized here because I'm on FM. I'm just using an HT. And then the other thing I noticed is it really helps to have a little more power. And part of it is that, that non-line of sight region, if I can punch a little more signal past the horizon, that can really help. Improve the antenna first, because an improved antenna will help you on transmit and receive, but then improving the transmit power can help. And what really got me to doing this was I kept noticing that sometimes I could hear the other station and they were having a hard time hearing me when I was on a summit. I go, now why is that? Oh, well, that other guy is sitting there in his mobile and he's running 50 watts, and I'm on the summit and I'm only running 5 watts with the HT. It puts me at a disadvantage. I can hear him, but he can't hear me. So I bought this mini mobile. It's a TYT. It runs 25 watts, and that's a nice compact. Still small enough to carry, but on a high, it gives me a lot more power. I also have a Yaesu FT90 that can do 50 watts. I usually run that at about 30 watts. But anyway, that's another way to improve the station. And so that kind of raises the issue of batteries. The battery pack, there's lots of different batteries out there. The one I've really come to like are the Beofang lithium iron phosphate batteries. And I just showed one here. This is the one I use the most. It's 12 volts, 4.5 amp hour, costs about $65, and is pretty compact. And then I've got, most SOTA activations actually don't last that long, maybe an hour. So this is fine for that. And then if I'm doing something a little bit longer, like maybe a VHF contest, I might bring along a bigger version of this battery. These are some of the specs. The key spec is it's not very big, about 3 inches by 2.5 inches by 3 inches, and it weighs a pound. So they're pretty lightweight. Let's see. How are we doing on time? We're at 8 o'clock. All right.
You're good.
Yeah, so okay, so kind of talked about some basic equipment, some improvements you can make, different antennas. Here's an example of a SOTA activation. Now, maybe some of you guys have been there. This is a national monument in northeastern New Mexico. And as you can see from the picture, I didn't take this picture. I took it off the internet, but you can see it's obviously an old volcano, dormant volcano, and it's been declared a national monument. And there's a road that kind of winds around it, and then it stops on the edge of the crater. And then to get to the actual summit, you need to walk up, hike up a trail, pretty easy trail to get to the top. And so I thought, I really would like to activate that. The only problem is it's, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so if I just go up there with some 2-meter FM equipment and start making calls, I'm going to have a hard time working major population centers. So it'll be hard to work Colorado Springs, for example, on 2-meter FM. Not impossible, but difficult. I maybe could get into Albuquerque, but that's pretty good distance as well. Yeah, 150 miles to major population areas. And then the other thing is, well, maybe there's enough mobiles driving along, listening to 5.2. I can raise them on 2-meter FM. And then it's like, no, pretty low probability. So I put the word out with the weak signal VHF guys that have big stations, decent Yagi antennas, and maybe they're running a bit of power as well on CW and single sideband. And then I took my FT817, which can do those modes, 3-element Yagi on 2 meters, and I guess just 5 watts. I think it was just running 5 watts. I was set up to do CW. And so kind of put the word out and got on the air. And here's kind of my best DX for the day. Here's where Capulan Mountain is up here east of Raton. And I worked N7KA down on the just west of Albuquerque. And he was about 185 miles away. Okay, so he was running a bunch of power. I think, he probably had several hundred watts, and I'm sitting there with my little 5-watt QRP rig. So I could hear him on sideband, but he wasn't hearing me. So we flipped over to CW. And like they say, sometimes CW gets through. And so we managed to make the contact that way. I also worked some guys up in Colorado Springs. And I think one guy west of Denver. So it was a successful day, but that's a great example of probably wouldn't be able to do that with FM. Really needed, really needed CW to make that contact. Okay, back to that picture. Here's that dual band. That's the antenna a lot of the satellite guys use for working the FM birds, same thing. Here's my buddy Steve, WG0AT, out on one of the 14ers with a small Yagi. And this is my favorite hiking partner, my wife, JJ via Joyce, and we usually activate together. So here I'm doing just a great job of holding the antenna and pointing it in the right direction. She's actually making the radio contacts. There's a little mini transceiver there stuffed into a fanny pack. So one thing I like to do is VHF contests are good, SOTA is good. Why not combine them? So I'll do a combination VHF contest entry and SOTA at the same time. So here's an example of that. I went up to Mount Herman. Again, it's like 9,000 some odd feet, just west of my house in Monument. This was again in January. Weather was pretty good that year. Did 2 meter, 70 centimeter FM and single sideband, and made 17 QSOs in about an hour. So not super fast or not super high number of contacts, but okay. And best DX was stationed up in Wyoming in DN 71 for about 140 miles. So here you can see the FT 817 is sitting down here. Well, here's a better picture of it. I'll usually take one of those BioNO batteries along. I don't trust the battery inside the Yaesu. It doesn't seem to last that long. So I usually have an external battery with it. Here's another great shot. This is David KI6YMZ on Mount Elbert a few years ago. Yeah, again, he's got an HT small. That's the Arrow antenna. And you see snow on the ground behind him. This is in August. And it's not always warm and sunny. This is Steve WG0AT and Guy N7UN. They were doing a SOTA activation, and they got into on a 14er. I don't remember which 14er it was, but they got into some rain, and the clouds set in and started raining on them. They were just miserable. And so Steve pops out the handheld, his handheld transceiver, and he's just trying to make a few contacts so they can do the activation and get down the mountain. Okay, so that's it. We talked about some VHF, UHF topics and hiking and SOTA contesting and mountains. And as I said, that's I do a lot of different types of ham radio operating, but in the last 5 to 10 years, it's kind of been the thing that really catches my passion the most, and enjoy. Colorado's a great place to do this sort of thing. If you're not up to being on the air, or being on the mountains, I've got a number of folks that chase me all the time, and I let them know when I'm going out, and they're like, okay, I wish I could climb the mountains with you, but I'm just not up for that. And so they just enjoy it by being at home and giving us contacts. So that is another way of enjoying the mountains without actually going out there. So let me stop there. Any questions, comments?
Well, thank you, Bob. I want to appreciate it for presentation. Very interesting. There's so much you can do with UHF, VHF. Personally, myself, I've been trying to do satellites recently and playing with those. Have you ever messed with the elk antenna?
UHF, the elk VHF antenna?
Yeah.
I've seen it. I know guys really like it. Let's see, how should I say this? It's a pretty short antenna. The boom is pretty short, and I think the gain is not as good as like it's a log periodic antenna, and I don't think the gain is as good as the Arrow. So I'm very partial to the kind of conventional Yagi instead of a log periodic. But I know guys that really love them.
I have an arrow and I have an elk. I mean, my personal thing is the elk is a lot heavier than the arrow. It definitely has more weight. So
Yeah.
if anybody has a question for Bob, please unmute yourself and ask the question, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer your questions.
Got two questions for you. One is, how do you keep track of QSOs? I noticed in a lot of the slides there, you know, they have the antenna in one hand and the HT in another hand. Do you record those, or rely on the guy on the other side to submit them? And the other question was regarding the antennas. Have you ever tried any of those vertical antennas that appear to be made out of plastic coated tape measures, as opposed to the, you know, the half wave solid one?
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Those ones that fold over.
Yeah, I have not tried one of those. I would, yeah, I would not. They probably work just fine, but I've not used them. Yeah, on the first piece, the logging question. Yeah, so it's a challenge, and the thing that my favorite hiking partner and I have worked out is we kind of trade off making contacts and logging, and so we help each other out. But because it is kind of like I just do the handheld antenna. Some guys will go ahead and put up like a little mast, you know, and get their Yagi mounted on it. And to me, that's just too much trouble. And so I've always done the handheld thing. And but that's another thing you have to do. You notice in that one picture, the thing I've settled on is the little fanny pack, and shove the radio in there. So, but you still, you know, have the microphone in your hand, and so it's kind of a two-handed deal, right? And so Joyce and I solved that by, you can see she's got the log in her hand right there. She's writing that down, and we'll just sort of trade off and help each other. A lot of guys go ahead and just tape the whole thing. I guess the satellite guys do that too, right? They'll just run an audio recorder and capture it all that way, and then sort it out later. I have not done that.
The comment I would make.
Good question, though.
I looked into SOTA a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of SOTA summits in Colorado, as you pointed out. And you were showing the pictures from 9,000 and 10,000 feet. But there are many places that I call ridges on the air. And just north of Lyons, there's a ridge that, or two of them, I guess, that qualify for the SOTA. And I'm sure there's others in other parts of the state where you don't have to climb so far. That's my comment.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good point. I probably should emphasize that more, because there's a wide range of difficulty. I don't know if we can see which ridge you were talking about. Here's Lyons, Indian Mountain. Doesn't look like it's been activated. But I'm sure some of these are not too difficult. Sometimes I have a slide in there that talks about some of the easier activations. So like Genesee Mountain, it's in Genesee Park, just off of I-70, going towards the mountains. That one's really easy to get to. Usually you can drive to the top, or more likely you have to park, 300 feet below the summit and do like a little walk to get up there. So that's an example of a real easy one. There's one outside of Estes Park. what is the name of that? Has a gondola kind of thing that goes to the top that takes care of most of the vertical. Yeah, you don't have to be a mountaineer to do some of these. Some of them are quite easy. And that's maybe part of the challenge, like, or part of the fun is like just getting out the map and starting to look at these different summits and go, well, which of these are close by, you know, and you maybe start around your home and see what's close to your home, or maybe you start looking at mountains that are maybe further up in the mountains, but they're close to the road, easy to get to, that sort of thing, and it requires a little bit of research. There is a website that it's basically a database of all kinds of information about the summits. And one of the things the database can do is people who have activated can leave notes. And so they'll give you tips on, okay, this is really easy to get to. Just drive here, turn right, start walking. You'll be there in 30 minutes or whatever. Or if there's problems, like some of these summits are on private property, and there may be plastered with no trespassing signs, and so people leave notes like that to sort of help out other activators. I try and do a lot of trip reports on my blog, so you'll see descriptions of what the trail was like to give you a pretty good idea of what you're getting into before you go.
Great. Any other questions for Bob? Anybody? Yeah, some of those are gonna be a little bit easier to get to, but you won't be able to hang anything from trees because just north of Jamestown is where the last fire started. So
yeah,
a lot of that is gonna be burnt down. So might be easier to get to. You just won't have any trees to hang an antenna in.
yeah. Unfortunately, man, what a tough season, and once again set a new record on the size of the biggest Colorado wildfire.
I think it's still only 51% contained right now as of the last
Yeah.
report. But of course, tomorrow is probably going to grow a little bit because of the winds. But hopefully, with the cooler temperatures coming on Friday and higher humidity, it should hopefully at least give them a little break. And then Saturday's not going to be super warm. And then Sunday, hopefully, some snow up here. So, with a cold front coming through.
Yep.
So, does anybody else have any more questions for Bob?
I wanted to comment on the satellites. I kind of went through my satellite phase a few years ago and really got into it and did a lot of operating. And that is another fun activity that you can do on VHF and UHF. The newest technician licenses can pursue that as a fun activity.
And I do recommend that, as an activity as well. One of the other things we're looking at least the club wise, and probably early next year, is we're going to also do some fox hunts, hopefully as well, which is usually done on UHF and VHF as well. So that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that kind of all fits together. I mean, some of the use your arrow or elk antenna or whatever, and use it for a fox hunt.
Exactly.
Use it for satellites. Use it for all kinds of things.
So, anybody got anything else?
Hey, Chuck, before we quit.
Yes, Steve.
I'd like to put a little comment in. I'm sporting a new hat for the club. It's a steel gray hat. It's got the Longmont Amateur Radio Club logo on it. And we're coming up with some good pricing with it. So everybody take a quick look if you can see it.
Yep.
I hope you guys like it. Dick, they've really beat the price with our folk down in Arvada. right now sporting a local company called Atomic Prints in Longmont. They're about 19th and Main, and hope to get a bunch of these hats ordered. I'm working with shirts, long sleeve, short sleeve, to kind of balance out this gray shirt with the logo, and maybe customize the shirts, guys, with your call sign and your name. I hope everybody is happy. We're getting really good prices on these. We're hoping to shoot for 50. And if I can get a third of the club to buy them at a real discounted price, we may be able to add a couple bucks to the club as a fundraiser.
Okay.
So hope this helps, guys.
Well, thank you, Steve. Do they do just the patches as well, or?
The patches come from Harlan.
Okay.
He is a hand that's tried to get on, and he's in the club, and he's just going to charge us the material price.
Okay.
They're an iron-on, not stitched, and they're holding on real well right now. So that's the plan right now going forward.
Cool. Well, thank you. Yeah, get that together, and let's see what people's interests are. Any other questions or comments this evening?
Yeah, this is Steve from membership. I'm currently on cellular network because down here in La Junta, the fiber have been cut, so I have no internet. But we will be doing a drawing based on the attendance tonight. The winner will get a choice of a couple of different options. One of those will also be Bob's book, which I'll get off of the internet and get that donated to the winner if that's what they'd like. Otherwise, we have a couple of other choices.
Thank you, Steve.
So I'll be in touch with that person, and their name hopefully will be in the next splatter.
Thank you very much.
This is David here in Longmont. I will be, as I mentioned earlier, I will be going to the next testing session on Saturday. Aaron, I got your emails that you sent out recently, so hopefully I've got all the address and everything I need. I will be joining the club after, hopefully, after the testing session. If you guys have the application and everything I need there, I'll go ahead and bring the cash with me and get that taken care of for you guys.
And David, usually somebody's got an application there. Normally I bring them. I won't be able to attend. I have a previous engagement, but we can definitely get you signed up and things like that. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Yep. Kat just said she's going to have applications there, so you're good to go.
Okay. Thanks, Cap.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bob, I want to thank you again, sir. Great presentation. Really appreciate it. Definitely a lot of good information. Again, check out Bob's book. You can get it. I think you can get it on Amazon, right, Bob?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Check out his book. And hopefully, we can get if the fires go away. We can get some
to Rochester for me. I've been there a couple of times on different projects. I spent a lot of time up at the IBM Boulder site probably from about 83 till last year. I even had an office up there for a while.
Well, I worked for Kodak for 32 years, so.
Well, I've been out to that site a lot too. I've been involved with field service, and so the Kodak site up north near Greeley, I visited those data centers quite a few times.
Yeah, that's actually where I came from. I've never been to Rochester, and some of my peers said that's a good thing.
That's what my father-in-law says. He used to be in Rochester for IBM. After he moved out to Boulder about early 70s, and he's now retired and been out here. He's IBM for like 25 years. So.
Oh wow!
But the Kodak Colorado actually had an amateur radio club.
Oh,
did they?
Yeah,
wow.
And actually they used to test right there. In building 15.
Neat.
So
okay, neat. Yeah.
Now they're like 35 people work there, so it doesn't.
I know it was really something.
Yeah, I left
Well, I
in
guess-
2010, and I saw it as big as 15,000 people out there.
Wow,
Now
yeah.
there's, I don't know, maybe 150 if that.
Yeah, well, everything has changed so much.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Bob.
I'm sorry, I should have said back to you.
Oh, you're good. And just so you know, Joe, the information for Saturday is in the agenda. And you're still on mute, Joe. So
I don't
thank you,
remember
Bob.
if I got the agenda. To be
Well,
honest with you. I got
Bob
Doug's
just-
notes, all I got.
Yeah, Bob sent it out. So if you still need it, I can forward it to you, but it's in the agenda. Pat joined us, W1PGE. Good evening, Pat. Welcome. He's our club secretary. I'm getting everybody to put their call signs on, so it makes it easier for you to track everybody down.
Yeah, please put your call signs on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Now I heard you. You dropped off for a second, so.
Okay. Yeah, if you put your call signs on, I can record you.
Got it. Thanks, Bob.
And we still have 10 minutes. Anybody else want to bring anything else up? People been getting on the repeaters? Since our technical, one of our technical committee members are on. I know I was on the repeater earlier talking to Steve and talking about some of the stuff going on, and he was supposed to be on. I don't see him on yet.
I'm on.
Oh, there
hear
you
me,
are.
Chuck?
Now I see you. Yeah, I
Yep.
see you. KF0AGY. Yep. So I was talking to him on the repeater earlier, and we were talking about the smoke coming out of the mountains. So.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're getting it from the Colwood, and then I heard somebody said that the one on the other side of the mountain at Granby sparked up some more as well,
Really?
Oh, and left hand.
and left hand as well. So
Yeah, you could really see. I was down in Broomfield, and I took a photo. You can see the sun hitting all the clouds, and it looked very spooky, Halloweenish.
yeah, we still got 9 days for that, or 10 days, something like that.
Every now and then we catch the smoke up here in Minneapolis.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you guys do because it blows out of the west.
Yeah, it circles up towards Canada, then
Yeah.
comes back down.
Jeez. Now we lost 2 repeaters in that fire.
Yeah, Horsetooth and Buckhorn, right?
No, both Buckhorn was up, and we kind of kept
Okay.
it up on a shoestring because it's the only thing we had for Aries. But Horsetooth was down. In fact, it just came up yesterday.
Oh, good.
Actually, this morning on
Yeah.
AC power.
You think it's destroyed or just off the
But yeah, we still had Horsetooth and the other 3 or 4 we got. So fortunately, I mean, we had Buckhorn. Yeah, we were a little worried about that because that's our main. The 275 and 115 are our main stuff for Aries. So we had to do a lot of politicking and moving things around in a hurry.
Just a side note on that, by the way, carbon and smoke and soot, when it gets humid, it becomes real conductive.
Oh,
Good to know.
Yeah.
Point your antennas to the smoke. Is that what you're saying?
No, just if your electronics is ingesting a lot of smoke,
Oh, okay.
you got to be kind of careful about that.
Well, they also say you're supposed to wash your car every day and things like that too, but I figure it's going to blend into the paint on mine. It's an older car, so.
I heard from one of our members, Laura up in Jamestown. I mentioned her last night on the Hamlet Net. They got home and their home is intact, just fine. Says they're without power, but they're all safe and their property's safe for now. They're under a evacuation warning, so they may still have to evacuate again. But as of right now, they're doing good. She was going to try to join the net, but without power, they're kind of on a generator, which is a bit iffy. But they're doing good. So thought I'd bring that up since I mentioned them last night on the net.
Yeah, well, thank you again. Appreciate that, Dave. Hey, we can give brownie points for coming on off the grid. Again, if you're just joining, if you could, there's 3 little dots in the right-hand corner of your picture. If you can click on that and change your name and add your call sign, that'll make it easier for everybody to know your call sign, and also our secretary to mark you as attending the meeting this evening. The 25 people, this is nice.
Looks like you guys run maybe 2 nets during the week, one on the Hamlet net and one was
Thursday nights.
Sounded more like the regular net.
Yes.
What's the Hamlet? What are they? What's the
Well,
2 different
okay.
nets?
The Tuesday night nets at 7 p.m. or 1900 if you're into 24-hour time. Basically, the Hamlet Net was kind of originally a joint venture between our training instructors and myself, based on feedback from a lot of our students, because we have 2 great instructors, Kat and Brian, who are both on the meeting this evening, W0UM and AF0W. They do a hands-on class, so it's not just go through the questions and things like that. It's over usually a couple of weeks, couple of nights a week. But some of the feedback they got from the students was like, well, I'm kind of intimidated to get on the air, kind of shy, mic fright, things like that. So I said, well, why don't we start another net that's just basically for new hams. Now we do have, everybody's welcome, don't get me wrong. We have Elmer's on, and it's great. I love it when they come on and can help out. But it was started to get new hams on the air. I've had a couple of people step up and actually run the nets as net controllers as well. And it's a little bit more relaxed, formalized type net. We usually have a topic of the night, then I open the floor for questions and discussions and things like that. Where Thursday night net is more of a get on and just, how was your day? Things like that. There's no topic, it's just general discussion on the Thursday night net. See how people are doing and things like that.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, we have a pretty active technician license class, and Royce, we're very successful getting people licensed, and then the challenge is get them on the air and get them active, and that we're still working on that, always looking for new ideas.
We still have the same problem to a degree. I mean, we're averaging between 7 and 9 people on our Hamlet Net on Tuesday nights. Part of it could be just the night it is on. I sent out a survey at one point, said, okay, what would be the best night? And I got the most votes, so we went with that. But yeah, there's still people out there that have mic fright. They'd rather listen.
Yep.
And we do try to, Kat and Brian in their classes, I mean, they even get people to simulate talking on the radios before they even have their license. I mean, they do a hands-on type thing, so people are familiar with the mic in their hands, how to hold it, what to do. I tell people that even if you don't want to get on, at least listen. There's a gentleman, I was hoping he would join one of our meetings, who's not a ham yet, who's been in contact with me. He actually went out and bought a radio. I told him, he goes, well, how can I get on the air? I said, well, you can't, you don't have a license, but if you want to listen for cheap, go buy a little Beofang, get you a decent antenna attached to it, and listen to the nets in the area and get familiar before you get your license. Because that's what I did before I got mine, is I basically used it as a low-cost scanner. And I set up all the frequencies.
I went out and I'm planning on taking, like I said, I'm planning on taking my test on Saturday, but I went out last week, I think it was. I went to Amazon and I wanted to purchasing a TID UV82, which I've got plugged into to a desktop charger now. I have not programmed it yet, so I'm going to have to program it, but I will probably be joining that Hamlet Net once I get licensed and can listen in and become more active.
You're more than welcome to join it, even if you don't have your license yet, at least to listen.
Yep.
So everybody is welcome.
Pay your money.
All right. I'm missing some board members. Interesting. But we got a couple more minutes. Got 3 more minutes. So.
Jack, what will happen if 149 members get on Zoom?
If I actually know that 149 people are going to get on Zoom and join, I'll pay for the additional license for it. Seriously. I would be more than happy to hear that happen, Steve. Right now, our license covers 100 people. but I would pay for the upgrade for the month if I knew more than 100 people would join. And just so everybody knows in the club wise, we have had a Zoom has been donated to the club. It's paid for an entire year. So again, if you have ideas for, we've talked about Zoom little small groups and things like that, please, let us know. But again, you have to run it. We're not going to run it for you. So it's if you got an idea and you want to share it with other people, let us know and we'll hook you up. And you can have cool backgrounds like Joe and Jerry. If your computer can handle it, of course. I have an older PC, so I can't do the wallpaper unless I go get a green screen. Which spaceship is that, Joe? Is that the...
I have no idea. It might be the Orville. That's all.
Oh, okay, the Orville. Okay.
I don't know. I just pulled it off.
It actually looks like the Enterprise D. That looks like the Enterprise. That looks like the Enterprise D from Star Trek: Next Generation, or possibly the Enterprise E that replaced it after Generations.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm a Trekkie.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I just pulled it off a web. I've got one of. We usually have our meetings at the Golden Corral, so our Zoom meetings now have a Golden Corral background.
We haven't, I think.
We found out that if we stay home, the coffee's better. And its service was a little better too. Oh, don't tell Sarah that. She's the owner down there. She'd be good friends. So.
And we got some questions. Oh, good. People are helping answer. Good. There's a chat going on, so you're welcome to join the chat as well. People are talking about HTs and stuff. What I recommend, believe it or not, what works really nice, I found online, I built myself, and I got to just get it up a little bit higher, a UHF VHF dipole. It cost me less than $6 to build. And I'm hitting our repeater here in Firestone. So for people who are new, check out the web for UHF VHF antennas. You can build you a small little ground plane antenna with 5 pieces of wire and an SO239 connector. And you can get on the air and, you put it outside, hang it, where you'd hang a flower pot or something, potentially could hit the repeater as well. So you don't have to go out and spend, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get on the air. I've built several Yagis out of tape measures. And just point them towards the repeater and get on the air, especially with an HT, because you don't want to put more than 5 to 7 watts of those things, or you can burn your hands holding it. But so there, the web is full of information, but also don't be afraid to write the club and check out our website w0eno.org and drop the board or just even info and say, hey, I've got a problem. Actually, what you want to email is Elmer at w0eno.org. It's a new web email that we created. So we're starting an Elmer group, and people have been helping out, answering questions for whatever the case may be for ham radio. So please, if you do have a question, or even if you're not a member of the club, even if you don't have your call sign yet, you got questions, you've been researching it before you go get your ticket, don't hesitate to ask. We've got plenty of us out here that are willing to help answer questions. So,
Chuck,
yes, sir.
Can I put in a plug for our Monday Night TechNet?
By all means, sir. Go ahead.
NCART has a Monday Night TechNet. It starts at 6 o'clock on we think we're going to be on the 447-275 up here at Horsetooth. We also, the people who are down south, we are linked to the 750 machine at Lee Hill. So if anybody wants to join in, it's just come on in with any questions you got.
And of course, you want to expand your horizons, check out Aries groups. There's 2 of them in the area. There's BCARES, which is Boulder Aries, and then R3D2, which is Northern Colorado's Aries group, which Joe is part of. And I'm also a member of that as well. So if you have any questions on getting involved with Aries, that would, they each have websites. Just type in their names in a Google search and you'll be able to find them. So it looks like everybody's got their call signs. I think you all caught up there, Pat. You got 25 names there.
Yeah, I got closer to 30 names, but anyway.
30 names. Okay. Oh, that's good. I'm only seeing 20. Oh, because I'm not seeing page 2. Wow. Okay. Got a lot more people than I thought. So everybody welcome.